your privacy is being compromised. If you're using an unsecure printer that someone can access, they may be able to find out a bit more about your home network and what type of infrastructure. And the list is endless. And as was presented early in the morning when someone spoke about the Mirai attack, outright security is probably more of what gets announced on the internet. We hear of these devices were hacked, and because of that, these devices were used to attack another network. The best example being the Mirai attack, which was explained in the morning by Christian. So when these IoT devices get compromised, bad things can happen. It means the device that you have at home could be used to launch another attack against someone who is not even near you. So how can we improve IoT security? There's a lot that can be done. We at ISOC believe in collaboration. We believe this collaborative approach will really help in getting this IoT to be more secure. The collaborative ways could be a number of things. It could be sharing information. It could be saying that this device is not safe, we should not buy it. It could be working with manufacturers to say that can you as a manufacturer give me some sort of guarantee as a user that when I go to buy an IoT device, maybe it has a sign that says trusted by so-and-so, or verified by so-and-so. It could be using secure services when we go on the internet to make sure that our devices are using encryption, are using secure passwords. We were told in the morning how secure passwords can help protect private information. This can extend to IoT as well. Is your IoT device using a default username and password? Because if it's not, it's very easy for someone else to get in and compromise it. So as ISOC, we worked with a couple of other stakeholders and we came up with a document which we call the OTA Trust Framework. It's a framework which tries to capture all the security aspects of IoT. And it is very useful for you if you're a manufacturer, if you're an IoT policymaker, if you're an IoT user. You can read this document and the URL is there. There's a URL where you can go and you can get that document. It's available in English, French, and Chinese, and Spanish. And it's a very simple document that says if you're a government or if you're a policymaker, these are some of the IoT considerations you need to consider. If you're a home user and you want to go and buy an IoT device, maybe a smart camera or a smart print or something, this is what you should consider in terms of security of that device. Now, I'd like to move on to a case study of some of the work we're doing with the government in Africa, this is a government, whereby we're trying to work with them to get an IoT framework policy for Senegal. This work is being done by Africa, so he's going to come in and give you an update of how it's working and a couple of lessons learned.
Thanks, Kevin. Again, by show of hands, anyone involved in IoT work in their countries? IoT, Internet of Things, work-related activities in their countries. Just anyone else? And, my colleague here. The lady. The country level, the lady from Senegal. We are going to talk about Senegal today. So I think we probably have no doubt that IoT is one of the emerging technologies, right? And I think you would all agree that there's a whole list of emerging technologies that we can talk about. Whichever excites you, some would say artificial intelligence. I'm a fanatic of blockchain. But I think IoT is one of the things that we are noticing as something that's very close to the things that are applying to our lives on a day-to-day. But what does this mean for Africa? And I think this is the important discussion we should be having today. We are here today, but can we do something about it? Is there something that we can contribute as technologists, as innovators, as academics, whichever way? And I think one of the things that we've realized in the past 2 years is that the IoT discussion, though we acknowledge that it's an innovation in Africa, there is not much of that discussion within governments, even within the spaces. We talk about it, it's exciting, smartwatches, Kevin mentioned, but there really isn't much discussion of what are the consequences that are coming, because this is what we're supposed to be doing, right? It's the people in the space to see where the threat is coming and how we can address it, or start to think about some ideas. So one of the things that we thought would make sense was to look at the at IoT security from a much broader perspective. Say most of African countries, and this is a fact, we are not really producers of IoT devices. We are mostly consumers. So these are mostly coming from Europe, Asia, China. In fact, most of them might be coming from China. But if these devices are coming into our spaces, and we are really much concerned about all the security issues that we are talking about, discussing about, is there something that we can do? One of the things that we think is important is looking at the policy framework, at least having some kind of a framework of looking at where the threats could be coming in and where the solutions could be coming in. So in 2018, last year, during a similar summit like this one, last Africa Internet Summit was in Dakar, for those that were present, we launched this project, the national, the Senegal National IoT Security Framework. The purpose really was quite simple, and the idea was to bring the parties that may be concerned in looking at this challenge or opportunity. It can be a challenge, it can be an opportunity, holistically. And we then invited the government of Senegal with me. The government of Senegal, these are the partners that we have on this particular project. The regulator in Senegal, the ministry, who said it's from Senegal, my sister. The regulator and the ministry. So both of you are familiar with this? I don't mind my sister. Yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with this. So the idea was to bring the government and the regulator. We also do have the Privacy Commission as part of this, the Senegalese chapter. Again, looking at the different interest groups that could be either affected or that could benefit from a framework like this. So the process has been trying to gather the views of the different stakeholders and structuring them in three particular sectors. I think the first important one was that there was an acknowledgement in Senegal that for IoT, Senegal is definitely not a producer of IoT devices, and it's probably a consumer. So most of the devices that are coming in are coming from other countries. So as a consuming country, what is it that we need to be worried about when these devices come? So secondly, it is the fact again that when IoT becomes it keeps growing, there is likely going to be some pressure on the network. So network resilience becomes an important aspect as well. So this was probably the concern from ISPs, that are we able to start to look at our networks right now, and if we are projecting anything that's coming, is there things that we need to improve? We need to start thinking about it now, and stuff like that. The other important thing that came from the discussion in Senegal was mostly from the universities and academic institutions, which are also actively involved in this project. The aspect of innovation. And we have a very active innovators community in Senegal, mostly young people that are interested in pursuing some ideas, and probably are also looking at this as an opportunity. And the third group really is looking at how young innovators in Senegal could start to think of using IoT more relevant in the different sectors. IoT in agriculture, and it could be in the education sector, and stuff like that. So these were the partners in the project. What do we try? What are we doing about this? Okay, so generally speaking, the idea with this project in Senegal, it serves three purposes. Firstly, there are not so many of the African countries that have started talking about this effectively. The discussion is there, behind doors in many of the places to go, but there is no particular government that has really started taking this very seriously to a point of engaging in a process, in a particular process. And I would challenge you, maybe you may have identified an opportunity in this. Probably this is also something that you can pick from this discussion, and if you are willing to start a similar process in your country, probably there's scope for us also to help you learn through the process what the Senegalese have done, and probably make your processes much more active. This is just a representation of the partners that are involved in this project. Our thinking is that by the end of this year, we'll have a national IoT security framework in Senegal that could be showcased to the world. In ISOC or at ISOC, this is not just happening in Senegal. In Senegal is just one of the countries. Senegal is the African case study. In Europe, we have France doing the same process. We have Canada doing the same process. We have Japan in Asia doing exactly the same process. We also have Uruguay doing exactly the same process. So of all these continental projects, we are hoping to learn different dynamics in other countries. Of course, like Japan, we can see that they are more industry oriented because they are producers of IoT devices. So, mixing all these ideas, we believe that we can have some kind of an idea that we could use to improve our system. The process is very multi-stakeholder. We do have multiple sessions that we organize. Some of them are online, some of them are in person. And for anyone who may want to learn more about this particular project, you can follow on this website, www.iotsecurity.sn. You may get some ideas, or you can come to me or any of my colleagues if you have an interest in looking at the same in your space.
Yeah, I think that's what we wanted to cover. Over and above the work we're doing with Senegal, we are trying to reach out to other organizations. Last in April, we had an IoT security workshop at the African Union Coalition in Salvador. We are reaching out to regional economic RECs, see if they can also they will be interested in doing this type of IT work. For those who may be wondering why is it important to work with the government? What's one of the main drivers? IoT devices are coming into our countries, many of them. And currently there does not seem to be any regulation of what type of devices are coming. So as more and more of them come in and they're not secure, it means the threat is growing that our users are going to, you and I are going to use unsecure IoT devices. As more and more devices are coming, we have printers now, but TVs, cameras, printers, things used to cook, like microwaves, and so on. Tech is coming into everything we use every day. And there's a big question there of privacy. Is the information being kept private? What is the policy of the company that made that device? The device actually was just yesterday, the day before. One of the big providers, they sell a device that you can speak to, and then it does a search. Apparently, it was recording children, and the parents didn't know. So one of the parents is suing the manufacturer. Because saying this IoT device, there's no way it says in the policy that you're going to record the children. And the only way they knew that is because their child went to another household that had a similar device, and when it spoke, it identified the child. So it's very interesting. So I think for now we would like to discussion thoughts. We can talk a bit about, do you have any questions in terms of what it means with your privacy in these devices? What do we mean by security? How can you tell that your device is secure? And for those of you who say your IoT devices, maybe you can tell us what are you doing about, like, how do you know it's secure, or what do you do to check it? Yes.
Thank you. I don't know whether I should call it question or comment. The truth is that we appreciate this framework. It's a very. My name is Joel Mobi from the University of Jos in Nigeria. This framework to me is a very laudable one, which we all of us need to key into. The issue of Internet of Things, we're not going back. It's something that is moving at very high speed in terms of things that we use. You made mention of issue of the default, the Internet of the Things, for the Internet of Things. Actually, they are not as much intelligence as devices we use on our network. And I think those are the areas that they have as their shortcomings. And it makes them more vulnerable than other things. So based on this framework, what is the team have in terms of especially looking at these devices that we actually don't manufacture them, they come the way they are being manufactured. Is the policy or is the framework saying something on how to mitigate some of these default loopholes?
Yeah. So the framework document and go to the URL and download it. It covers certain aspects that IoT devices should have. And to give an example, it talks about authentication. So I can say, for example, if you're going to purchase an IoT device, make sure that it has some sort of authentication mechanism. And the username and password should not be easy. It should not be admin. It should be a complex password. Second is encryption. It means that if you're going to purchase a device, it should be able to encrypt the communication or scramble the communication between you and itself. And the advice there would be, if you're a government or a policy maker in this case, and you want to come up with a policy for IoT, you can read what's in that document and adapt that into your policy. So that you have a policy that says, if you're going to bring IoT devices into this country, they must conform to this. It must have encryption. It must have an update policy. Some of these devices that are coming in don't have an update policy. So what happens is, you buy today, it's brand new. It's called, it's secure. Then in 6-7 months, there's a big breach and there's no update policy. So if you go to that document, it's a very nice document. It describes some of those factors that you need to. And I think there was something that Chege also raised a question. Over and above what we can do in terms of the policy, there are a couple of things that users could do to actually improve our security. There are services out there that if you just read the news about, and if you read and use in your network, you significantly improve your privacy, significantly improve the security. Like when it comes to stuff like DNS, I don't know how many of you have heard of the port 9999. It's a the gentleman at the back there has, probably knows a bit more about port 9. But when you use certain DNS resolvers, they don't store your information. They don't keep your information. So as soon as you use it, the service provider of that DNS resolver doesn't keep it. So that helps improve your data security. So a number of things.
I think one of the reasons why this comes back is that IoT is really penetrating wherever we go. So also in all these countries. But IoT is really a global thing from a global market with global connectedness. So both the devices come from all over the world, and you can't control them. People can even make them themselves, fairly simple, and connect them to the internet. Services come from all over the world, and even the devices that are in your country can be used by people from outside. So it's clear that whereas it has been coming up over the years as something new, exciting, we become aware it also becomes critical to, particularly when you adapt it to infrastructures, when you use it in health and other factors. So we really should start, and that you hear come up everywhere in the world to secure these networks, that they can be used against you, they can't be used without your permission, and that they can't be used against other users, like for DDoS attacks. So that may not affect you, but hey, the fact that nobody takes care of it does affect you. So in that way, all these, you can't also organize it in one country. That's not good enough. What you can do in one country is have a policy, try to improve it, and link to more global issues. And this is where ISOC with their framework comes in as a means that is not the law or the ultimate solution, but is a way where you can benefit from and where you can feed back to improve it.
And you touched on something important actually. When we talk about these IoT devices, they're not only those that we're buying. We have, they're very cheap, these IoT devices. And we have, young engineers and universities who are already testing and building IoT solutions. Like when we had the conference in Addis Ababa last month, so, there were very many projects from Africa on IoT, very innovative ones. Like there was one from Cameroon, I remember. A young guy had built an IoT network which was tracking the transportation, the public transport in the country, and drawing a map. So you could easily tell where the public transport is in the country. There was another one, I think, from Benin, if I'm not mistaken, on e-health. So he had built a small web interface and a small IoT hardware in his lab, and he could work with hospitals to share information. So as our young guys are getting involved, our students, so they need to be aware of what those devices should have. They should have encryption, they should have application, and so on. So if you're in a university, if you're teaching, I know a couple of people. How many lecturers do we have? I know them, so they can't hide. Yeah. He did raise his hand, but so you could encourage the students to read the document and just follow that as a guideline. If you're going to build an IoT device for farming, whatever it's going to be, you can improve the security of the device just by reading the guidelines. Yes.
Hi, my name is Chege. Nigeria. Okay, you talked more about the network parts of every IoT device, but there's some IoT, okay, it's like bad edge. There's some IoT devices I've seen that you connect them to the internet, and before you find out anything, your data is already moving. You get, and it's not from anything network or anything. Sometimes it could be from the framework of the IoT device. So, what's like? Is there like anything that can be done about that also, as in, like, is there like anything coming up with that?
Okay, so that's a good question. As part of this work that we're doing on IoT is we're trying to encourage manufacturers to be very clear as to what the device can do. So sometimes you buy a device and it comes with a small manual in front, 4 or 5. It's a really tiny manual, and in there it says something, when you switch this thing on, it's going to send something. And sometimes as users we also blame because we're like next, I agree, okay, yes, get this thing online. But sometimes in the user policies, if you read them, they actually say we as a manufacturers have the authority to use your data to send it to third parties to do something. For example, some televisions, what they do is so that when you talk to it, it can respond. They record your voice and send it to a third party. That third party processes your request, and then that third party now owns your information. So we are trying to encourage manufacturers very clear with what that device can do. And also as a user, before you purchase the device, just read through what the device can do, and before you accept to use it or to put in your credentials and so on, you already know that this device, when I do something, I have opted into a certain service. So there are two parts: the manufacturer but also user engagement. Yes. Any other questions? Okay, I think we are done.
Also, it may be good if you tell a little bit about what's happening to make securing IoT easier in the future. I'm referring to technical standards like that and other things.
Yeah, so there's a whole world out there of standardization, which tries to, there are engineers who are constantly working on security and coming up with standards of how to make these devices more secure, more reliable. These are the open internet standards that we talked about by ADL and NA. There are a number of them which are focused on IoT. Actually, if you go to one of the organizations that works on open internet standards, which is IETF, Internet Engineering Task Force, or IGF.org, they have a whole set of standards that are being developed to make IoT more secure. And I probably can't cover all of them now, but if you go to IGF.org and just search IoT, you'll find a lot of information going there. And all these are to make our IoT devices safer, but also for the engineers in Africa who are going to build and design their own IoT devices. They don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just go to the website, read what a standard is, what it's trying to do. Okay, and many people can write open libraries. There's a gentleman from Zimbabwe actually. It will be around this week. He added a bit of security on IoT solution that he had, and he pushed it out to GitHub. So it's an open library. So if you're a student here, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Read what's on these standards, bodies, and just adapt what's there. I think I'll stop there. Just
So let me talk again.
What did you say?
Since it's a collaboration, what does it take or how can either a group or a nation be part of this? Be part of the collaboration
of
IoT. This is particular collaboration.
Okay, this is it's open. We're working with the ISOC chapter. If you're an ISOC chapter member, it's very easy to collaborate. Like as Benkai mentioned, what we're doing in Senegal is actually being led in Senegal by the ISOC chapter. So if you're part of the ISOC chapters in your countries and you want to get involved, they know how to find us.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.